Good afternoon. Well, still good morning, I guess, for a couple more minutes. My name is Michael Boylan, President and CEO of Wjct Public Broadcasting. I appreciate you being here today. Let me first start by, as you can see, we've got a capacity crowd, actually overcapacity crowd in terms of the RSVPs. That's good news. That's great news, as a matter of fact. But unless we have someone in the room who can divide loaves and fishes, we may be running out of food. So my encouragement to you in the future for events like these and others is that you please do RSVP, because we had RSVPs for about 150 or so, and we have clearly much more than that. But thank you for being here. We appreciate the opportunity. Again, Michael Boylan, I served on the steering committee for this project, also actively participated as a facilitator for many of the conversations, and see an awful lot of familiar faces in this room. A quick personal, if I could, as we get set up here, when I moved to Jacksonville in May of 1999 to come to WJCT, one of the determining factors for me was the discovery of this thing called JCCI. I was so impressed with the fact that this community had an organization like JCCI to do the kind of work that they do on an ongoing basis. I served on the board for a number of years, and so I firmly believe in the work that they do, and I certainly think it's consistent with the work that we do here at WJCT. We pride ourselves in being community conveners. I want to thank all of you for the time that you've already committed to this project, be it in giving it some good thought or being part of the good conversations that took place at the Prime Osborne. And we're hopeful today is just the beginning of the next stage of that process. And we're hopeful that today, as you leave this meeting, that you become charged and ready to really execute the vision that we together have created. So I thank you for that opportunity, and I commend yourselves. Give yourselves a hand for your participation. It's not my pleasure to get the program going and to turn the microphone over to Ben Warner. As you know, Ben is the visionary in this process. He and his team have worked diligently in making this, I think, a workable opportunity for our community. So I'll turn it over to Ben at this point. Ben?
And I too want to welcome you. I am excited to see you here. I'm excited for what that means, because this is the time when we're moving from the imagine it phase of what Jacksonville could and should be to the build it phase, where we roll up our sleeves and get to work to make it happen. The kind of commitment that you are demonstrating by being here today tells me that you want a better Jacksonville for yourself, your children, your grandchildren, that you want to make this happen. And I appreciate that. Little point of logistics: if you have open seats at your table, if you'll help other people looking for open seats, if you'll wave them down, and there should be enough seats for people at this point. We've got more chairs we can drop in once we get these tables filled. As we get started, I thought it would be interesting if we began by reviewing where we've been. As we think about what the future of Jacksonville can be, let me go here. I want us to remember what happened in putting together the vision whose strategies we're here to implement. And this should be playing right about now. Jacksonville. We will build it together. We will reach it together, hopefully well before the year 2025. All right. We love computers. If you're part of any of those community meetings where you put the vision and the strategies together, let's give you a round of applause. Thank you so much. That was about imagining it, figuring out what we want to be. Now it's time to build it. And I want to give you a brief overview of how that's going to work, and then we're going to tell you how to use the report you have in your hand. So here's what the implementation process looks like for JAX 2025. Inside your report, you created 10 vision targets, 10 areas for us to work on. Within those targets, there's 60 strategies. And those strategies are a part of this way of we're thinking about making it happen, where there are they should ideas, there are you can ideas, and there are I will commitments. When you put all those things together and start thinking about 10 targets, 60 strategies, all of these you cans and I wills and they shoulds, sometimes it feels just a little bit overwhelming. And so what we've tried to do today is to help you think about how we're going to take that overwhelming process and figure out how we're going to make all of these things happen and do so before the year 2025. Here's how we're going to do it. There's a combination of institutional advocacy and individual action that has to happen. As we work on this together, it's a way that we align together the efforts by those agencies and organizations, those coalitions, those different groups. How do we get them all working together to make things happen? Some of you probably noticed that there was an article in the paper recently where someone asked, gee, how is JAX 2025 going to work? Because this looks like in a lot of stuff, and our budget's tight, and gee, this looks like it's going to take billions and billions of dollars to make happen. I need to answer that question for you. I need to answer two questions. The first question was, did you really get everybody in the community to respond? And the short answer is what we did is we asked people in the surveys and in the public meetings. We invited the community to participate. A lot of you did. A lot of people who aren't here today participated in the surveys, and we appreciate that. This was not designed as a scientific process. This wasn't a polling initiative. It was, if we're doing a scientific poll, there's a lot of people in the room who do that better than we do. This has, as I like to say, no more statistical validity than voting does. This was the engagement by the willing, who said, I care about the community and here's what I care about. And I thank you for being here. Our implementation efforts are going to act the same way. This will be a bringing together of the willing to make the community better. This isn't relying on government to be able to create some magic pot of money that will solve our problems for us. We've tried that in the past. And we've thrown a few $billion at our problems. We've done some good things as a city. But if it were that simple, we would already have the city that we envisioned. Instead, what we're asking is that we align the resources of this community, the public resources and private resources, the individual action and the institutional action, so that together we're aligned and working on a shared goal. If we can avoid the kind of separated and contradictory and infighting kind of issues we have in the past, and work together instead on a shared solution, we think that there's plenty of resources, there's plenty of energy, and there's plenty of hope for this city. So we're going to talk about how to make that happen. We'll review in a moment this idea. We took the they should strategies, and we've identified different ways we'll approach each of those strategies. Some of them will be monitoring. Some of them will be adding volunteers or advocates to be able to move them forward. Some of them will create focused task forces to move that strategy forward. We'll be using our communications and individual action to be able to get the You Can initiatives underway. We'll be talking about the I Will pledges that you've made. And we'll be using new techniques, including progress at JCCI.org, progress at JAX2025.org. and our I did it cards for people to report in their success, and we can build on that. We'll be explaining each of those pieces a little further in today's program. But what I want you to know, and the most important thing before you hear anything else about how we're going to make this happen, is you need to understand why we're doing it, and you need to know that implementation works. And so we've asked someone to come up and tell you that, so you don't have to take my word for it. We've invited Carol Brady, who has worked with us on a number of different initiatives, to talk with you about what implementation feels like and how it makes a difference in this community. So, Carol?
Thanks, Ben, and good afternoon, everyone. So how many of you have been involved in one of the JCCI studies before at any time? Okay, well, this should not surprise you then to talk about their process. We were involved, the Healthy Start Coalition, actually in requesting that JCCI take a look at infant mortality and its impact on our community back in 2008. And that was probably my first time of really being involved in a major way in a JCCI study. And the study process was great. I mean, again, many of us serve on committees and task force, and we've gone through this and produced a great report with a pretty cover and recommendations. And that's exactly what this group did and came up with some wonderful recommendations. I think what I was not prepared for was what happened next, which is after the study was released, and we all patted ourselves on the back, JCCI said, well, that was really, the work's only begun. It's not over yet. Granted, we have this great report with 15 recommendations. And so that was kind of new to me to think that, oh gosh, we've been doing this for a year. What are we going to do now? And what we did was roll up our sleeves, much like you're being asked to do with JAX2025, and really put those recommendations into action. So is this worth it? Does it work? And the answer is absolutely. I think the way to think of it is that the report itself is like the pebble being dropped in the pond, and the implementation piece of it is a way to ripple out those recommendations and involve even more people in this effort to share the vision of what's been developed, and it does work. Of the 15 recommendations over the 2-year implementation period, over half, 8 of them, were fully implemented as a result of implementation. Again, I would challenge many of us to go back and look at some of the reports that were done to see if if you have the same kind of track record. Most important, it brought 50 people into the process, many of whom had not participated in the study. And you may need different people when it comes to implementation. Some of us were tired. There were new partners who were energized because studying wasn't their thing, action was. So half of the recommendations, not bad. Another 4 were partially implemented. And in fact, only 3 we were not able to implement, largely because of resources. And I think that's a stellar performance on the whole implementation process. But most important, I think, is the impact on the problem that we were attempting to solve. We have as the Healthy Start program has a long and storied history of looking at infant mortality. But because it's a sentinel indicator and one that involves a lot of community factors, this was a problem that could not be solved by Healthy Start alone or even the healthcare sector alone. And that's the way people looked at infant mortality. And I would dare to say, as a result of the implementation process, and getting more people to look at infant mortality in a different way, it is definitely considered differently in our community, not as a healthcare problem, but as a community problem. And the ultimate proof is what's happened to our rates. Our infant mortality rates now are at the lowest level they've ever been in recorded history. And, Again, that's a result of community action. It's a result of broad-based implementation and what things like the JCCI process can do. So again, think of the pebble in the pond and how many more people can be engaged in this process. It does work, and I would certainly encourage enthusiastically. I'm so excited infant mortality is still in there, so thank you for that. And so this is the beginning of phase 2. Thanks.
Thank you, Carol. I would like each of you to reach in your bag and pull out this work in progress update report. So I want to talk about how we're going to use this in implementation. You'll notice, those of you who had a copy of the thicker report that explained the process and all of those things, it's about a 100-page document. This is much shorter, it's lighter and easier to carry around, and it has some updates in it since we last met. Inside this report, we've taken all 60 strategies and put them in 4 categories. And I want to talk about each of those in a moment. You can find this on page 4. When we looked at the strategies, we were able to see that many organizations in town have adopted or aligned themselves with some of these strategies already. You heard some of that at the release event on May 18th, when we heard between the mayor and the superintendent, JTA and others, Downtown Vision, speak about what they were doing that was aligned with this vision. So we have this monitoring category, which are ways where there are lead organizations working on an issue that we want to encourage that. We want to watch to see what happens. We want to applaud when they're successful, and we're going to pay attention to it. But these are categories where they don't really need more people jumping in. The example is we met with Jerry Millot at JAX2025 Partnership yesterday. They've got one of these strategies they're working on that's aligned with their Innovate Northeast Florida initiative, but they really don't need all 200 and something of us walking in the middle of a negotiation with a company they're trying to bring to town and throwing in our ideas of what they ought to do for that incentives package. That probably isn't a good use of our resources. And instead, we're going to encourage that, and Jerry's doing a great job over there. And so those are monitoring strategies. And as we monitor, we can see if there comes a point where we need to jump in and provide some assistance. The second category, you'll see marked in the report, are these volunteer or advocate strategies. These are strategies where there is a lead organization already. They're tackling an issue, but they need some help. And they could use volunteers, they could use advocates. The example I like to use for this is the Riverkeeper, and I'm glad the Riverkeeper's here today. There's some wonderful things where they're taking the lead on protecting the St. Johns River. And there are times when they need people's help, either to roll up your sleeves and help on a river cleanup, or they need people's help to send a few thousand emails to Tallahassee to say, come on, help us out on this. So there's an opportunity for volunteers or advocates to be able to make a difference. In those strategies, we'll be encouraging people to connect to those organizations directly and work with them directly to help them become more successful. The third set of strategies we're calling focus strategies. These are areas in which there is currently community momentum and interest. There are organizations working on it, but there's not a single lead organization. There may be multiple organizations, or there may not be an organization yet in charge. But there's a need to bring people together and develop a set of tactics on how we're going to make this strategy work. These are the focus strategies are ones that appear to be areas where we can make a quick difference. Sometime in the next 6 or so months, we'll be able to move this strategy forward and hopefully move this strategy to where it has a lead organization that either needs help or is able to move forward on its own. And so we've created 4 focus strategies that represent about 4 focus task forces that represent about 11 strategies overlapping multiple vision targets. The fourth category we're calling on deck. These are those strategies that require a little bit more background work, that we're going to have to build up enough community momentum to be able to make a difference. So we're working on these in the background until they get to a point where we're able to create a focus task force to work on them. And so These are next steps in our implementation process. We've got 12 years. We want to get as much accomplished as quickly as we can. We know that positive efforts will spur other positive efforts. The more successful we can be up front, the more people will join in as those ripples in the pond to be able to make this effort more successful. We're going to start off with those low-hanging fruit and continue onward. On page 5, we list those focused task forces. And we appreciate your input in helping, those of you who have been giving us a lot of information since the report came out on where you think that we needed to begin. So we created 4 focused task forces, and there are sign-up opportunities in the back of the room for these. They include a task force on encouraging bicycle and pedestrian transportation. We saw that there are not only a lot of great and interested people working on this, there is a tragic need to do better on this area, as was demonstrated this last weekend. This is a strategy that appears in environment, in neighborhoods and urban heart, in healthy communities, and in transportation. It was something that showed up across the board we needed to do better with. A second strategy, a second focused task force is on working together for people. Wait a minute. I said that. This is encouraging by, there you go. Working together for people. There we are. This one had a theme that appeared both in a place where people matter and a diverse and inclusive community. We know that we have a lot of great organizations working on diversity issues in our community. We've created a catalog of many of them. There are others that we're also trying to bring into that fold. But one of the things we're working on is trying to collapse the silos between these organizations, as we have organizations who are focused on one specific flavor, as you would, of diversity, and there could be a lot more effort and a lot more synergy if we could work together around all the different ways that we appreciate human differences in our community. And so we'll be working on that as well. Another focused task force is on this question of distinctive neighborhoods. It shows up in the arts and entertainment theme. It shows up in neighborhoods and urban heart. It shows up in vibrant economy. It is the work where we try to pull together how we connect neighborhoods to each other, neighborhoods to themselves, and how we are able to reach out and get greater feedback as they work with public and private institutions to strengthen what makes neighborhoods great. And that's the third of these focused task forces. And the fourth one is on government openness and responsiveness. One of the things that we need to work on is developing this feedback mechanism so we get the responsiveness of local government on many of the issues that we're facing, that we work on publicizing the performance measurement systems of our local government. It is a way of really making sure that we've got that connection between government and the people. And we appreciate the initiatives that are already underway. One of those is the more of this, less of that, and Michelle's here. Michelle Barth from the Mayor's Office, the more of this, less of that initiative, which allows you to take a picture of something you like or something you don't like and get that communication flowing. We want to do a little bit more work on that and many other issues to be able to make sure we've got this feedback loop so we can work together with the city on making things happen. We think that that's going to be a great focus strategy to work on. Before we go on, as we work on these focus task forces, you may say to yourself, gee, where's the one that I'm most interested in? As I look through these 60 strategies, there's one that really gets me excited. On the back, there's other places for you to sign in and say, I'm really interested in working on this, and I want to get some people around me working on it. And we can push this forward. And Molly's standing in the back. Molly, can you wave your hands? There's Molly in the back. She's standing back behind the table where we're going to be connecting and seeing what else is there that are these immediate needs that we need to be working on, that you're interested in driving the train. So those are how we're dealing with those particular strategies. I'm going to invite Daniel up now to talk about some of the communication and who these other people are who are in the room and why these other tables are being set up. So Daniel, if you'll come forward.
Good afternoon, everybody. All right, it's me again. I'm Daniel Austin. I am the communications coordinator for JCCI and for JAX2025. Thank you. And you and I are going to get to know each other seriously, because as we move from the Imagine It phase of JAX2025 and into the Build It phase, one of the 3 essential components of successful implementation is the communication of what's happening. For me personally, one of the most exciting things about JAX 2025 is that the shared targets give people and organizations the ability to align their goals with one another. That alignment can only happen if the lines of communication are open, and our team is committed to connecting and reporting out JAX 2025 news so that everyone is firmly in the loop. So on page 4 of your update book here, it says, "How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time." And that says no elephants were harmed in the making of this slide. The same is true with the highlighting and the celebration of the good things that are happening in this city on a regular basis. It may be hard to see if it's not in your neighborhood that day, but every day things are happening. That's why we started the website JAX2025ontarget.org, a blog solely devoted to sharing our stories, the ones that are moving the needle on our vision. And there's a look at JAX 2025 on Target there. So you can help us share your progress with us. Did your company recently instate a policy that aligns with the People Matter target? Did your child's school move for better lunchroom choices, hitting the healthiest community target? Did you buy season tickets to the symphony or to a local theater company, jump-starting the arts and entertainment target, maybe even the downtown and neighborhoods and the vibrant economy target? Well, we want to know. Email us your organizational on-targets and the completion of personal I will commitments to progress@jax2025.org. That email address is progress@jax2025.org. And we will celebrate and share your success when your I will becomes an I did. In fact, we have I did it cards with us here today. On that same table back there with Molly, we've got some I did it cards. So if you've already completed your I will personal commitment, you can fill that out today and leave that here with us. And all of these communication tools can be found online as well at jax2025.org. Also, keep JAX 2025 alive by making sure it's in the community conversation. When you brand an action or a decision with JAX 2025, you're saying to everyone that you are working to make this city a better place. JAX 2025 is not owned by JCCI, only facilitated by. Our community as a whole owns this process, and now that we have this shared vision, it's time to take charge of that ownership. Decide which target or targets your organization or family will work on. Post the key strategies in your workplace, on your fridge, share your success with us, and encourage others to get involved as well. We're currently developing an on-target toolkit online with fun ways to show people that you're working on target. We're working to make it easy for business owners and homeowners to be proudly displaying their pride in Jacksonville and their dedication to seeing the 2025 vision become a reality for all of us, so stay tuned for that. Now, if you're looking for action, look no further. On top of our new focus task forces that you just heard about, we will be giving you additional you can opportunities. So roll up your sleeves because we've got representatives here today and we're happy to share that they are working on target, and we thank them very much for that. You can always get engaged in that work. I invite you to visit their tables and see how you can get in on the action. We've got Jacksonville's Save the Library campaign, the Duval County Public Schools Department of Community and Family Engagement, the Jacksonville Committee for Equality, the Jacksonville Jcci's Rising Tides Green Team, OneSpark, and our volunteer partner, Hands on Jacksonville. And they all have plenty of opportunities for you to get involved today. So after we're finished here, be sure to check out their tables and you can get immediately connected to action. So also in your bag of goodies, we have a calendar of events here. We have 2 trainings coming up. The JCCI Forward Advocacy versus Lobbying training on July 11th is the perfect follow-up to this meeting today. There you'll learn about the differences between lobbying and advocacy and how you can advocate for change here in Jacksonville. Also, we're currently developing a speakers bureau of willing volunteers who would like to share the goals and strategies of JAX 2025 out in the community. We'll be having a training session right here at Wjct on July 16th, and please see me today at that back table if you're interested in being part of that and to register. So the best part about JAX 2025 is that the report, the plan, as we've said today, is just the beginning. Together, through action, we can become builders for our city and its future, and together we can make this possibility into reality long before 2025. So contact with me, share with me anytime, daniel@jcci.org. Thanks very much.
The point of today's meeting wasn't to have a whole lot of people talking at you. It was to give you the opportunity to talk with each other and to connect to some of these opportunities to make things happen. So I'm going to cover a couple more things and then take a few questions, and we'll move this forward. Here's one of the things that I need to talk about. As we're working on target, we need to recognize those who are helping make this possible. So I want to thank the people who have been funding this work. They include the Henry and Lucy Gooding Endowment, Wells Fargo, the Community Foundation, Jesse Ball DuPont Fund, Jaguars Foundation, Florida Blue, Florida Times Union. Broad-based communication has helped us out a great deal on this, and they're wonderful. I think they're in line for a big award for the kind of work that they've done in helping us get this message out. And also for Fanula Gagan, who helped us with the T-shirts that you've seen throughout this process. We also have, you'll see in your report, innovators. These are organizations that have aligned themselves with the JAX2025 vision and have chosen one of the targets that they wanted to help support. And we appreciate their help in funding this work. They include Beaver Street Fisheries, the Tom Neal Truck Company, St. Vincent's Healthcare, Mayo Clinic, Community Hospice of Northeast Florida Community Hospice, Bailey Communications, JEA, and Community First. Can we give them a round of applause? And for those of you who say, well, individual advocacy sounds like too much work, can't I just write you a check? Yeah, you'll also want to talk to Molly, or I'll talk to you directly. So here's what we'd like to do. We'd like to get you connected to action. Inside your packet, you'll have a few things. Daniel already showed you the calendar of events that looks like this. We also have a participant profile. You know, we didn't make you sign in, we didn't make you do any of those kind of things, but if you'd like to be involved, we'd love for you to fill this out. It helps us communicate with you directly. For those of you who've been involved with us and have done this for us in a prior year, if you wouldn't mind just giving us any updated information, that would also be helpful. We also have an evaluation form that will let you give us additional information. Those of you who filled out evaluation forms during these past 5 meetings have been incredibly helpful as we tailored the meetings to meet the kind of needs that you had. This will help us work on our implementation efforts. But here's the challenge. I would like every single person in the room today, right? And it doesn't matter if you're young, like my niece Cassie over there, or if you are a little wiser, like Marvin sitting in the front row, glaring at me a little bit. Hi, Marvin. And everybody in between. We've got work to do. I want to make sure that you don't leave this room without connecting to action to make JAX 2025 happen. Some of you are really excited about being part of community advocacy, working with institutions in this community. Sign up for a focus task force. We'll get you connected. We'll get some great things happening. You'll be able to move this along. For those of you who say, you know what, I really don't like working with a group. I want to work on my own. There's a lot of you can opportunities to say, how can I make a personal commitment to action? For those who say, there's a group here that I really want to get connected with. We've got the Riverkeeper, we've got JCs, we've got all of the different organizations on both sides of the room that Daniel talked about. Make a connection. And Hands on Jacksonville, if the person you want to, the organization or cause that you want to connect with isn't in the room, then Hands On will help you get connected to somebody else. We want to make sure you don't leave the room without deciding what thing you're going to do to help make this vision a reality. We do need help on the Speakers Bureau. We do need help sharing the message. We do need help widening those ripples in the pond. And for those of you who are good at public speaking, we'd love to have your help. For those of you who are part of organizations that you think need to hear the message of what this vision is and how people can get involved, tell us in what organization and help us get on their calendar to be able to speak to them. For those of you who are comfortable in social media, please share the word as much as you can. Most importantly, though, we want you engaged in the building of the vision for JAX 2025. Carol was right. All the work we've done up till now is just the beginning. We've identified where the finish line is, but now it's time to run that race. And I need your help doing so. If you can't find the place where you want to connect, talk to anyone who's wearing one of the JAX2025 t-shirts, or talk to me directly. We'll find a way that you can be involved to build this vision. Thank you for being here. Jacksonville is a better place because of you and the work that you're doing in believing in this community. And I want you to know how much we appreciate it. Thank you for being here, and if the lights come back on, we'll get you connected to people here. Thank you. I promised time for a couple of questions. Are there questions that I can answer? No one has questions. There is a question. Yes?
I'm a Girl Scout leader, and I'd very much like to get involved in getting the youth involved in this. And we do a lot of stuff, like we do hands-on stuff, volunteer, but I really want something that pulls it together and pulls all the Girl Scouts together, not just my troop, the other troops also. So what have you done, or are you doing to reach out to them?
Oh, that's excellent. Her question was, she's a Girl Scout leader, she's got a Girl Scout troop, they do good things. How do we pull them together and make sure that they're connected into this larger building the vision? And how do we get all the Girl Scouts involved? How are we reaching out to youth? That's a wonderful question. The one thing that we're doing is we want to reach out through you and through a lot of other people. You'll remember that when we did when we sent out the survey, we created a youth survey and a teen survey. And one of the things we've been excited about is the youth participation all through the meetings that we've had. We're going to continue that. We're going to continue our outreach through youth. One of the things we know is it's summer now, but we've got a number of different youth councils and youth clubs and community service hours kids need to do for school, that this is a great opportunity for them to connect with existing organizations and existing efforts, but that are tied and aligned to this vision. And so I'd love to talk with you a little bit more offline about some of the specific things. One of the things we certainly need to do a lot more of is celebrate the work that our youth are already doing in our community. We spend too much time only pointing out when one of our young people really makes a mistake, and then they get in the newspaper. We really need to celebrate all the wonderful things that our youth are doing, and we can put them in that JAX2025 on target and help them build a lot more energy. Thank you. Marvin.
I feel we have a bunch here on vision, but we need more information on how to go about this vision. I was in Atlanta 60 years ago when the first 3 years that they started, haphazardly running all over the place. And I looked at these reports here and saw them as, well, everyone's saying we want to keep Jacksonville just as it is. And when you grow like
Marvin,
Atlanta did.
You already know I do this to you a lot, but can you go straight to a question?
Okay. How are you going to keep Jacksonville from being a complete disaster to live in?
That's a great question. That's a great question, Marvin. And you're right. The vision targets say, here's where we want to be. They don't spend a whole lot of time walking through the details on how to get there. That's why on each of these strategies, we're working with, ideally, lead organizations who adopt the strategy and can lead us to getting there. So this, inside the report, where on the section, A Hub for Smooth Transportation, and I saw Nat Ford here, and I'm very happy he's here and his team. We didn't try to write the entire transportation plan. But we said, in this transportation plan, as we look forward on where we need to be, here's what we need to accomplish, and how can we get involved with that in helping create the transportation plan that's going to get us where we need to be. And not only that, but how do we make sure it's not just a transportation plan, but includes everything, so that we include health in all policies. Because I saw Don Emmerich here, and yeah, we got to make sure that we bring all those pieces together. That's what these next phase steps are. And that's why we had these different categories. We need to be involved and we've dreamed it. The vision is our dream. Here's where we want to be. Now it's time to build it, and that's the bricks and mortar or the steel work that has to happen to get us there, and we have to stay aligned. Thank you, Marvin, and I trust you're going to keep us focused on that as we move forward. We've got time for one more question. Yes?
Thank you, Ben. I'm Jerry Llewellyn, and great. I've been part of this process right from the start, so I really appreciate all that we've done so far. I was wondering, and I want to wonder out loud. Jcci talks about the vision as being the gap between the reality and where we want to go. So obviously, we're excited about the implementation phase because that will close the gap. What I'm wondering about, though, is what would be the degree to which our organization in this project can connect with larger organizations like the World Future Society, which would be a natural force in our vision process and our implementation process in years to come?
That's a wonderful question, and I thank you for that question because it tosses a softball my way that I need to tell you about. Some of you know that I just got back a week or so ago from Berlin, where we met with the Chancellor of Germany, who invited us as the only representative from the United States in a world conversation about what progress of nations and progress of communities really looks like. That's part of 5 initiatives JCCI has been involved with so far this year. The Council of Europe just issued a publication on participation and progress in societies that begins, Chapter 1, Section 1.1, by saying the story begins in the United States over 20 years ago in Jacksonville, Florida. Let me tell you that the work that you're doing here is being viewed by people around the world. While I was in Germany, we're sitting in the Chancellor's office, and we had a representative of the European Parliament from Poland using Jacksonville as the example of what we need to do to move the world forward. We heard a member of the United Nations Human Development Team talking about how we need to engage people in these conversations like Jacksonville does in Florida. Now, these are people who might not even know where Jacksonville is on a map. I did show them a map and said, here's where the mouse is, and here we're a little northeast of that. But the work that we're doing is already being connected around the world. Jacksonville is an astonishing place, and it's an astonishing place because of people like you who come out and say, I'm going to spend Wednesday at lunch, and we're going to talk about going to work to make Jacksonville better. That's what inspires me about Jacksonville, and you deserve to know that the world is watching the work that we're doing here today. And I thank you for that. And with that, I think it's time to get to work. So if we can roll up our sleeves, and I'll take individual questions individually, if we can then find the place where you're going to connect to make Jacksonville a better place. Thank you for being here.